Hello creatives, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing the Zodiac series by illustrating Taurus, the mighty bull. So let's start with the head. I just used the sphere shape tool to build out the form using a whole bunch of circles and ovals to build the head, and then I put them all in place and also went on to making the legs and the horns and even parts of the body. And then I am going to use the shape builder tool to build the form, starting with the horns first. I started with the left one and then replicated that once I was happy with it over onto the other side for the head. Next, we're going to shape build the head shapes, which are made out of two spheres, keeping those top two ones for the nose. And I'm also going to shape build the nose together, so those two spheres are going to be molded together. And I'm going to move on to shape building the body and the legs, leaving the two legs that go behind the body that are farther away from us excluded from the shape building, because those are going to be separate. I'm moving points around to finalize the form of the nose here, just to get that shape correct. I'm also going to fix the horns because they look a little odd and misshapen, and we haven't finalized that yet. So let's go ahead and fix those by adjusting the anchor points with the direct selection tool. And just moving the points around just to get that final shape. Everything should be smooth and fluid because horns are made out of bone, so they're really smooth and they just flow all the way to the ends there. And then let's go ahead and move on and continue to tweak the proportions of the body and the legs, especially the legs, so that it is more realistic and a bit more believable for the proportions and the size of the creature. I decided to make this a bit more realistic than the other signs that we have done, just because this is primarily the shape of an animal, because Taurus is known to be the bull, and I just figured it would be more representative if it was actually more realistic as the animal itself. So let's go ahead and reposition the head and finalize the form for the head. Let's go ahead and create the ears from the sphere using the sphere tool, and just two ovals, and then shape build those together, mess with the points a little bit, put them in place, switch around the anchor points, and then set the ears in place. I only did one first and then replicated that one to the other side. It's just easier to do it that way than having to create two and make them look exactly alike. And then I also wanted to then move over to the horns again, just because they're not exactly what I wanted them to be. I wanted them to be a little bit more set in place, maybe a little tweak here and there, just so they're as fluid as possible. And then I wanted to make sure that I replicate the finalized form of the horns there and put everything into position with the head and the ears, because the head, it seemed a little bit low, so move that. The ears seemed to be not in the correct space, and then move the horns down, just make sure everything's put exactly into place. Now this poor guy is missing his tail, so let's actually put one in. I just used the pen tool and increased the stroke on that, a little trick, and then I made the end of the tail out of the sphere shape tool by just modifying one of the ovals and making a full circle, and then shape building those together. Next, let's add some color. He's looking very black and white. So the colors for Taurus that I found were primarily emerald green, or I also chose an agate green, and I also chose a dark green. Then I also used different kinds of blue, mainly sky blue, and I used a khaki, as well as, instead of white, because I found white to be too harsh, I used a very, very pale pink. Pale pink is a very lucky color for Taurus to wear, so I used that. And to make this more realistic, let's add a gradient into there just to break up the color and make it not so stark. I love the freeform gradient. It is a new gradient that just dropped, I think, this past year. So I'm adding the colors I saved to my CC library, and I am going to put those into the gradient and just move those points around as I feel necessary. Let's see. Let's move on and add freeform gradients to each area from the body to the tail to the horns and then the head, just so that everything kind of builds up together. And I'm just tweaking all of those colors using the points that you see that are moving around within the freeform gradient toolbox. And I am making sure that all the colors make sense, the shadow, the light, where the light's coming from, just making it look all like it's coming up together. For the head and the horns, I think I may go back and tweak those. They're not exactly how I want them as far as the gradient, because I think once the eyes are done, it's going to change up the look of the face. So let's not forget about those legs. Gotta get those colors right for the legs. Just messing around with the points, making sure that the darks aren't too dark to where it looks black, because this is not a black bowl. I'm also messing with the creams, the caramel colors, the khaki tones, and the dark browns. Brown and neutral tones are also great colors for Taurus. So I put all of those in here, just rearranging all of those and making them look as believable as possible. And now that we have those gradients pretty much set into place, I'm thinking that I might want to add a freeform gradient to the nose next, because I put in harsh like stroke lines in there before, those two gray stroke lines, and I'm not really keen on them. I think they're not really working as well as I'd hoped. So let's go ahead and add a simple gradient to the nose. It's just going to be black and gray, nothing too crazy, just so that it softens up the nostrils, so you know where the nostrils are actually going to be. And then from there, let's go ahead and create the eyes, because he doesn't have any eyes yet. So bulls have really, really big eyes. I've owned bulls before. Their eyes are huge. And of course, the eyes were going to be emerald green and dark green and bright green, all the greens for Taurus. Emerald is the birthstone of Taurus, and I am also one, so love the green. I added an eyelid just so that they don't look so dark and stuck there, because the eyes looked really, really stark. So let's also put a gradient in the white part of the eyes. Is that called the iris, I think? Let's go ahead and put a gradient in there, just the grays and that really pale pink I mentioned before, just to create some light and shadow. And that pale pink is for like the inner eye area. Most people, or pretty much every creature actually, has like that little pink inner eye area. So I added that. Did the same thing with the other eye. I replicated that eye and then just moved the gradient around. Next, let's go ahead and make sure that the eyes are the same level, and let's touch up that gradient on the face. I mentioned that I might tweak this because of the set placement of the eyes. So let's go ahead and just make those little minor tweaks, move the gradient around so that it makes sense with the eyes, put some darkness behind the eyes, and then bring some light down the middle of the face. And then let's go on and put some feet on this guy, or hooves, if you want to be technical. So I used this square tool and I just transformed it into a trapezoid and added a really simple gradient from light to dark brown, and then duplicated the hooves for all of the legs. Next, the proportions look a little bit off to me, so let's extend some of those things. The items that are closer to us visually should be larger, so I made the two closest legs larger. Items that are further away should be smaller, so I kept those the same size, and I just made the legs closest to us a bit bigger. Now let's see, next is going to be the title of Taurus. I want to keep it in that green color, which is famous for Taurus, and I also wanted to add the earth symbol, which is an upside down triangle that I made out of 3 squares from the square shape tool, and I just shape builded those out and made the triangle, that light pink color I mentioned before, and then I duplicated that triangle within itself to create the earth symbol, and I just stuck it underneath the T for Taurus because Taurus is the ultimate earth fixed symbol. Then I wanted to move on and make the constellation with the sphere tool again, that sphere shape tool, and I made it to where it went down the entire length of the bull's body, and I used the pen tool to connect the dots because they're like little dots. And again, I made that pale pink. And then to make it all glow, because it is a constellation, it is stars, I applied an inner and an outer glow to the constellation and also to the lines that we made with the pen tool, just to make sure that you see the full constellation as if it was glowing out in the night sky. Now let's look back. It looks a bit kind of plain as far as the colors go, so let's add in a dark green to the bull itself just to make it a little bit more celestial. It's not as dreamy as I want it, so let's go ahead and put in some stars. I used the star shape tool and then I just tweaked the points a little bit, and then I duplicated stars all over. I was originally only going to use 2, but then I changed my mind and I just started adding them everywhere. And I added a few little spheres to the face to make him look like he has kind of like little constellation freckles. And then to finish things off, I just added inner and outer glows to all of the stars and the little spheres. And that is Taurus. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to see the rest of the Zodiac series. There is more coming. I'm doing every single one, and I will see you soon, creatives.